Inviting GP Pro and Colo to participate in this today. My name is Lance Marlowe. I'm the Colo specialist covering the East Coast and really the eastern half of the US. But I'm excited to be here today. So what we're here to talk about is IoT in the building space, in the facility space, and more importantly, talking about IoT in the washrooms and how this can help achieve some efficiency and deeper hygiene, deeper cleaning objectives that you likely have. So just to frame up our conversation today, we'll start with just a real broad baseline of what IoT is, how it came about. We'll talk about some trends in the facility space, and then we'll dive into what some of these washroom IoT solutions are. From there, we'll dive a bit more into what Colo is, how it works, and then talk about some of the things that you can do with the data that's available from IoT solutions. So Katie, if you can go to the next slide. So what is IoT? IoT stands for the Internet of Things, and it's really about connecting physical objects to the internet. More specifically, it's sensor-equipped devices that collect and share data to help us learn more about how to do things and enhance experiences. So really, IoT, Internet of Things, began in industrial and military sectors, but as bandwidth and data capabilities and Wi-Fi ubiquity has expanded, it's meant that these applications have been able to broaden their reach and really get into your everyday life, both at home and in your office building, campus, arena, warehouse, wherever. So you're probably familiar with IoT at home, either with your Alexa, your Google Home device, or even your Nest thermostat, your Nest cameras. Those are all examples of IoT devices at home. But at the workplace, you might be familiar with these in the form of lighting, internet-connected lighting, where you can adjust lighting levels based on time of day, based on different schedules, based on occupancy. Whether it's HVAC, there's a lot of IoT-enabled HVAC systems out there as well. And so these are all different areas where you may have experienced IoT, both at home and in your workplace. You can see based on the chart that, it's essentially the wave of the future, right? IoT has been steadily, or the number of IoT devices out in the market have expanded exponentially over the last 2 decades. Okay, next slide. So transitioning from what IoT is, I just want to talk a bit about how, how these systems can help you in responding to what's happening in the world right now. So GP, both through our conversations with, major property management firms, Transwestern, CBRE, JLL, BSCs, and then through our own market research and insights team, we've done a lot of discovery over the last few months to understand, what's going to happen, what we think is going to happen over the next 6 to 12 months. And what we know is that while a lot of people are working at home right now, they really just want to get back to the office. And that may look different in the future. Instead of 5 days a week at the office, it may be 2 or 3. But the point is that there is a desire to get back in the office, to get away from home, whether it's for social, for productivity reasons. But we do expect that people are going to be going back to the office as soon as possible. But what they have is concerns. And what we found in our own surveying is that 73% of employees are either somewhat or very concerned about illness spreading in the workplace. Okay, next slide. So what's important as a facility manager is coming up with a plan to help address that. Right, to help mitigate the spread of germs, mitigate the spread of virus, and overall provide a clean facility for those folks coming back, whether it's students on a campus or employees or tenants in an office building, or even fans at a stadium. What we're trying to do is, oh, sorry, go back. What we're trying to do is build confidence so that they feel confident that being in that facility is safe. So what that means is readying the facility and preparing the team. We've seen densification in a lot of those office buildings over the years. And so really it's rethinking how to maintain social distancing. It's working with your team to understand staffing and density in the floors, we know that usage patterns in facilities are going to be changing. So how do you respond dynamically with your cleaning team in order to address that? And then lastly, as you make all these changes to both how you clean the facility, how you manage your team, you need to communicate that to the students, to the faculty, to the staff, to the tenants in your building, that you've made these changes to make the workplace safer. And that's the key. They're going to be more discerning when they come back. They're going to be looking for signs that these changes have been made. And so doing them is not enough, but communicating that, making that information available is going to be critical. Next slide. So this is where we start to get into how IoT applications can help with that. How can the Colo smart monitoring system help with that? So if you can hit, there you go. So IoT can help in a number of ways, specifically in the washroom with Georgia Pacific's automated in-motion dispensers. They can achieve several of your objectives inside the washrooms to help them make them more clean, more safe, and help mitigate the spread of germs. First and foremost, by having a smart dispensing platform that's both automated and touchless, you're helping to protect patrons and custodial staff. And I think that's the key. Ensuring that those dispensers are always stocked, always functioning, never jammed, is really going to ensure that people are able to complete an effective hand wash whenever they need to. They'll have the soap available, they'll have the towel available to dry their hands once it's complete. With a smart monitoring solution, you're able to ensure that those dispensers are always stocked and always functioning. The other piece is gaining that efficiency time, or that efficiency in cleaning time. So there is a lot more that's being asked of those resources. They need to clean deeper, they need to clean more frequently, they likely need to sanitize areas that they've never had to think about before. And so trying to figure out how you do that in a way that's both effective but also efficient is critical. And so Colo, or any sort of smart IoT system throughout your facility, can actually help you mitigate or minimize unnecessary tasks. So with a smart monitoring system in your dispensers, we'll tell you when you need to actually touch and open a dispenser. We'll tell you what the traffic is in a washroom. Rather than visiting washrooms 4 times a day just because you have to, you can actually look at traffic patterns and say, this washroom wasn't used, I don't need to go visit it. Or this dispenser's full, I don't need to open it. And all of that combined will give you time and hours back to put towards other tasks. Lastly, investing in a smart washroom system, whether it's our system Colo, whether it's one of the other ones I'll talk about in a minute, it helps to demonstrate a dedication to hygiene. So you made this investment, you've changed your process in some way. Now it's time to actually share that with the tenants so they look and see all the good work that you're doing, and it helps them feel more comfortable and more confident about being back in that space. Okay. Next slide. So some things to think about, and this is one of the first questions we always get when we talk or when we introduce Colo is, how are these going to connect? How do they connect to the network? Is there data security concerns? So real quick, I'll talk about how Colo works. I'll talk about how some of the other systems work and talk about some of the ways that, some of those concerns can be addressed. First and foremost, our dispensers have sensors and communication technology inside of them. So throughout the day, they produce alerts, they send them up to the internet or to the cloud, and then they come back down in a series of dashboards and native applications. Any of these devices will need a pathway to the internet. So whether that uses a facility's existing Wi-Fi infrastructure, or you have to install an IoT or a cellular network for IoT purposes, those are things that you have to consider when you're looking at IoT solutions for your facility. In the case of Colo, we connect via a collector device that device specifically makes that outbound connection to the internet, or to a level of infrastructure that then makes the connection to the internet. Some devices will actually, that device itself will make a direct connection to the internet and bypass any existing Wi-Fi you have. And those are things that, as you're talking with me or with anyone else that's representing these solutions, they can help guide you through the process and the technical questions required to solve for how these will get connected. What I'll say is that, we've all been doing this long enough at this point that we have pretty sophisticated solutions to address security concerns, areas that might have minimal coverage, and we can solve for that, whether it's through a cellular network or others. It's all part of the solution these days. And so what you can expect is essentially a turnkey solution where you buy the system, and then we'll handle the connectivity piece and the data piece. Okay. The other thing to consider is, what does the interface look like? So you've produced all of this data from these devices. How do you interact with it? How is it usable and actionable for you and your team? With Colo, we have a web access portal for supervisors and managers, but then for the day-to-day cleaners and custodians that are on the front lines, we actually have a mobile application. And so that's key. They'll always have access to the data in their pocket and can pull it out. They don't have to worry about working through this big dashboard in order to find what's actionable. And so ensuring that you're looking at all the different options, both how it's going to connect to the internet, but how you're going to interact with the data is critical when you're looking at IoT solutions. Okay. Next slide. So what I want to talk about now is just what are a few of the IoT solutions that are available for you in the washroom ecosystem. And this is really where Georgia Pacific operates, or GP Pro operates. But beyond the washroom, break areas, wellness rooms, kitchens, fitness centers, anywhere where you might have a dispenser, those are spaces that we're able to include in this, in our ecosystem. Okay. Some of these might be more specific to the washroom, but others can be used more broadly. And so, we'll talk about those. But to start, of course, we have our GP Pro dispensers. So they can be IoT enabled or Colo enabled. It is our touchless premium wash line, or washroom line. Next, we have Toto. And so we actually have a strategic partnership with each one of these players. Toto, is a maker of both porcelain and faucets and flush valves. With the Colo partnership, we're actually able to IoT enable those sink valves and those flushers and those urinal valves, so that you can track everything from the number of activations, gallons used, and more importantly, if there's a leak. So if there's a leak in that, in your flush valve, and the water's running, you'll actually get an alert in real time, allowing you to maintain it. Secondly, if your engineering team services those flush valves on a periodic basis, what if you knew when, based on usage, it actually needed to be serviced? You could probably cut down on the total number of times that your engineering team services valves and make them more efficient. So that's one of the benefits of those valves. The other one is this tush lights. And so this is a stall occupancy sensor, stall occupancy indicator. And tush lights is similar to what you might have seen at like a parking garage, where there's the red light or green light if a parking stall is available. It's that concept, but for washrooms. And this is a great solution for high traffic venues. If you're a campus environment and you have really busy washrooms, or you want to maintain social distancing in your office space, this allows you to know if a stall is occupied or not. We used to say it allows you to keep from an uncomfortable experience where someone's jiggling a door to see if it's occupied. Now what it can do is, if you want to maintain social distancing in a washroom, you can actually change the color to red to indicate that that stall is closed. And therefore, like every other stall could be made available for use, which would help maintain distancing inside the washroom. The last one is Avius. And so Avius is the touchpad, which I'm sure you guys have seen, and it's a patron feedback tablet. It has a smiley face, a frowny face, and a neutral face. And it allows you to get real-time feedback on your patron experience inside the washroom. And if a patron were to come up and select the negative face, some common feedback pops up, whether it's overflowing trash, water on the floor, lights out, and allows them to select that. And with our Colo integration, it allows you to see that feedback in real time, and it'll send that to a custodian so that they can respond and address it. And what that does is ultimately reduce the amount of the number of people that go through and have a bad experience in your facilities. Okay. So these are all examples of different players that have created technologies to IoT or create that connected ecosystem in your washroom. It's kind of mind-boggling, but essentially you get a sense for how much data and how much information and how people are interacting in that space to make the best experience possible. The last thing to consider is how do you digest that information? So all these players, yeah?
I'm doing okay. Do we have an ETA and the...
Okay. So all these are examples of players that we can show their data inside Colo. One thing to think about though is how does this integrate with your existing system? So do you have a work order management system? Is there a way for the data from these systems to be visible in that management system that you already have available? So with Colo, we have an API that means that we can export our data into whichever work order management system that you have. Okay. Next slide. So here's an example of what that connected ecosystem looks like. So this is an actual shot of the arena at one of our customers, State Farm Arena in Atlanta, home of the Hawks. This is an example of the most complete connected washroom. And so they have the tush lights, stall occupancy sensors there. They have the ABS feedback tablets there, and then they have the Colo-enabled Toto valves there. And so they're able to get a wealth of information about how fans are experiencing their facility in real time, and they're always able to benchmark, level set, and adjust. And actually, we're proud to say that State Farm won #1 for best overall fan experience in the NBA in 2019. So between the renovation and then their work with us and with these other players, they've been able to elevate the fan experience quite a bit. And so it really is a good moment for them. Okay. Next slide. So transitioning again from arenas and thinking more about office buildings or campuses, here's just a look at the impact that IoT has had at an office building setting. Molex is in Chicago. It's a campus style environment, so they have 5, 2 to 3 story buildings on campus. First, what we do when we install Colo is we have a baseline period. So we'll set it up. We'll get the data for 30 to 45 days. We'll understand, how things are operating before you have access to the data. Then we'll benchmark performance against that. And so what we found is in the first 30 days that Colo was on site, they had 60 towel outages. Now, if you think about it, that's 60 times that people weren't able to dry their hands. They didn't use soap. That would be 60 times that there was, just water being spread around the facility. That would be problematic. Because it was a campus-style environment, they wouldn't necessarily know when an outage happened. So these outages would last for 2.5 hours, and that meant about 1,700 people per month were not able to effectively wash and dry their hands. With Colo, we were able to reduce the number of outages from 60 to just 7 occurrences in the same period of time. And then when there was an outage, it would only last 23 minutes. And what that means is that before Colo, they had 150 hours of towel outages, right? 150 hours a month where those towel dispensers were empty and people couldn't effectively dry their hands. With an IoT system, that dropped to just 3.5 hours. And that's critical. That's over a 95% reduction in the duration of empty dispensers, just because they knew when a change was required. And that meant that it went from 1,700 to 160 people that were impacted by outages in a 30-day period. So IoT systems, whether it's Colo with our GP Pro dispensers, whether it's tush lights, whether it's Avius, gives you a wealth of data that allows you to better manage your facility and improve the patron experience there. Next slide. You can click it one more time. So here's an example of the different data that's available from a smart washroom system. First you have this dashboard here, but secondly, you've got a people counter. And so this allows you to actually understand how many people are using your facility. If your facility is only at 25, 40, 50% occupancy, and it varies from day to day, likely the patterns that your team is used to are going to shift. And so with a people counting capability inside your washrooms, you're able to more dynamically manage your team and ensure that you're servicing the areas based on actual usage. You're not going to spend time cleaning rooms that don't need to be cleaned because you'll have access to those insights. Okay? We also know that with this system, with any other systems, you might now have a wealth, probably too much data to look at on a daily basis. And so what we do is we try to package it up for you on a weekly basis and just send it to you. And we want to send you the most important information that's actionable for you. We'll tell you just where your top 3 longest response times were. We'll tell you where your most waste is, giving you a chance to actually address those quickly and frequently so that you're able to get the most out of the system and manage your facility as best you can. The second one is, or the third one, sorry, is smart reordering. And so with the Colo platform on our GP Pro dispensers, we're able to equate the number of dispenses of towel, tissue, and soap into bottles and rolls of product used. And then we'll take that and auto-populate an order that can be shared directly with Hill and Marks, saying, hey, I used 8 cases of product last week. Here's an order for 8 cases. It minimizes the amount of time that you spend counting product in closets. Also, it'll help illuminate any issues you might have with waste or shrinkage that need to be addressed. Okay. The other examples here are just different reporting that's available with our system partners. So whether it's Toto or Avius, it'll provide a wealth of easily digested information for you to act upon. Okay. Next slide. So this is something we're pretty excited about. And this is something that we've put together directly in response to COVID-19. And what this is a suite of hygiene features. And so this is basically our response to help elevate the utility of Colo for our customers. And essentially it's a task management function built into our application suite. So we look at the number of people that have gone through our room, and these are fully customizable, but if after 20, 40, 50 people, you want an alert to say, hey, look, we've hit this threshold, we need to go clean a room, we'll create an alert. This new feature, this new suite of features will create that alert in the custodial app for your custodian saying, hey, we've met this traffic threshold in the room, it's time to go clean it, okay? And so it'll send that alert to them, and then when they click into that alert, they'll actually get a task list that you can create that says, sanitize surfaces, sanitize doorknobs, dispensers, etc. And then we actually track in this platform what those completion or task completion rates look like. And so what you see here on the screen is both the custodial app, and then on the larger screen is the supervisor's dashboard that provides that 64,000-foot view of how task completion has gone. And so you can look at this and say, all right, I'm at a 92% score for task completion. I think we're ready to service our tenants today, or our students, or our staff, or guests today. And it allows you to benchmark quickly and create goals and objectives for your team. And more importantly, it allows you to share something with your stakeholders, whether it's higher ups, whether it's building ownership, whatever it is. This gives you a tool to communicate to them all the great work that you're doing. Do you want to hit the arrow again? So not only can we break it down at the facility view, but we can break it down at the floor and room view. And so you can actually track to see how your team is performing at different places around your facility. So whether you have multiple buildings, multiple floors, multiple tenants, you're able to create a hierarchy to track those individually. And so this system allows you to do that and create scorecards for each individual area. I'm gonna hit it one more time. And so this allows you to, again, additional reporting that tracks, completion of sanitizing tasks across day part by week. It's all examples of different reporting that's available to you. Okay. So next slide. So, I guess I want to thank you for your time and listening to me and taking the time to learn about IoT in the facility and in the washroom space. Just to give you an example of where we've had success in the past and customers that have found a lot of value in the Colo platform. Mid to large size office buildings or business parks. If you have a campus with multiple office buildings, you have a cleaning team that has to service them, Colo will probably be of value to you in helping to understand where their time is needed. Universities and college campuses are, we're talking to lots of them right now because they see a need to provide a deeper level of clean, but also manage increasingly scarce resources. Convention centers, airports, stadiums, and arenas, they all have their eye on when they can get back, and the key to getting back is providing a clean and safe event. And so they're looking at a number of strategies to achieve that. Colo is one player in an overall hygiene strategy that these types of facilities are considering, and we're really able to help secure that washroom space and ensure that it's safe and clean. Okay. So if any of this was interest to you and you want to have another conversation about this, please connect with your Hill & Marks rep, connect with your local GP sales consultant. They can help get you more information, connect you with me, and we can take the conversation from there. So thank you for your time, and I'll pass it over to the gentleman from Tennant.
Fantastic. Lance, thank you so much. And anyone who is on this call, if you do have questions, we ask that you can either write them in the chat box and we will answer them in the last 10 minutes of this presentation. So Lance, thank you. That was very informational and going to be very valuable in this age that we're in right now. So with that being said, Dave and Gene.
Hey, thanks so much, Katie. Good morning, everybody. My name is Gene Ferreira. Work directly for the Tennant Equipment Factory, which is up in Holland, Michigan. I live in Rochester, and with Dave Bonaquisti, we cover the entire upstate region of New York, which is Buffalo to Albany, everything north, and just a little bit south. I'll let Dave Bonaquisti do a quick little introduction, and then he can kick things off here with our T7 AMR, which is our new robotic technology.
Thanks, Gene. Lance, that was great. That was a lot. I have some questions I'll ask you later, but that is very cool technology. It's the way the world's moving, I think. Real quickly, I'll go through. I know you know Hill & Marks if you're on this call, but I always like to point out, where they are in the world and in the marketplace. They've been a top-tier dealer for us for a long time, 20 years, thousands of units. They always are first in our group. Excuse me. With taking on new technology that customers need. They're a great partner for your business, your school, your institution. Oftentimes, and I put at the bottom there, they sell technology that hurts their sales. One example would be we have onboard ionization of water on auto scrubbers. And over the last 3 years, roughly 96% of the machines they've sold do not consume chemical. So there's a huge positive environmental impact to their customers, a huge cost savings, and really a decrease in their chemical sales because those are all units that use chemicals, and they've chosen to sell the customer the right technology, which will lead into what we're going to talk about now. So robots today, it's not the Jetsons anymore. It's not a Roomba. It's something in between. Basically, the robot scrubber is your teammate now. I know initially there was some pushback, and Gene and I would do demos that, hey, we're taking people's jobs, we're moving employees out, and we're replacing them with machines, and that's really not the case at all. We'll talk about that. The robot works in parallel with your people. So the best way to maximize the efficiency of your robot is to work in parallel with your current staff. Okay, it may or may not replace somebody, but it's designed to make your staff more efficient as it works alongside you. So if you can imagine a staff member vacuuming an office space while the robot is cleaning the hard surface out in the hallway in a building. So now you have two people that are one person basically doing two jobs. It's predictable and productive, and what I mean by that is it does the same thing every night. It does exactly what you teach it to do. It'll scrub the floor efficiently. It'll scrub better than a person. And it will do the same thing over and over. You can train it to do all kinds of things, and we'll talk about that. And to almost to leverage off what Lance is saying, that it optimizes your workflow so that you know every night when you plug this thing in and hit the button on the back exactly what it's going to do. That way, that allows you to then remanage and retrain the rest of your staff. It certainly is efficiency when you talk about route cleaning. You know, a given area that's a hard surface, maybe your person just has to go out and sweep it first and then put the robot on it, as opposed to sweeping it, scrubbing it, and having the normal interruptions that happen to people, whether they get paged or they get pulled off the job for something else. So it makes the staff way more efficient. And of course, it works efficiently on its own. And it's the ultimate multitask cleaning. I mean, we can talk about that, about, you know, I can put this thing in a large space and let it clean, and at the same time I can be doing something else. And as I pointed to before, it becomes your teammate, really, not so much as your competitor. It becomes more of your teammate. And when you work in parallel like that, it really makes for great multitask cleaning and super high efficiency rates. So the overriding value to the customer for robotics, as far as robotics in the cleaning business, it really does create time to execute what we have now are far more higher cleaning priorities, right? So we're in a C19 world. Your staff is going to be pulled to wipe touch surfaces off, to wipe off doorknobs and windows and door bars, desk in a school, maybe, things like that, locker doors. And then you have to replace that. Like, that time is finite. So you have to be able to take some of those other more mundane tasks, which would be cleaning a gymnasium or cleaning a large hallway, and give that to something else. The biggest thing on the robotics, the cleaning aspect of this equipment, is that it really does generate time for your staff to do more important things. And in the C19 world, you know, you probably all on this call know better than I what those are. And it seems like, if you listen to Lance's presentation, it seems like there's going to be more and more emphasis put on those other cleaning tasks versus just scrubbing the hallway out in front of somebody's office. The unit will run 4 hours and charge 8. So in a 24-hour period, you can get 8 hours of productivity out of it, you know, with a simple charge in between. Employees that were walking or riding a scrubber for 4 hours, as they drive by restrooms that need to be cleaned, they drive by an office that needs to have the carpet extracted, or they drive by maybe a touch surface that in a food area that needs to be wiped down. That's sort of wasted time if you think about it. A guy driving a scrubber around all night when there's so many other things that are more important within a facility. And it's super simple. It's probably the easiest thing to integrate into a current cleaning program. What's going on, and Lance hit it, and we'll talk about it, is you're really reorganizing your cleaning tasks now. No longer does a guy take a broom out and sweep something, and if he feels like it, he'll clean the restroom. What we find is our customers are completely shaken up how and when and why and where they're doing things. And this gives sort of a stabilizing factor to cleaning the floors in the open spaces. So it's super easy to use. It requires less training than several of these new ideas you're going to get thrown at people now to clean during the C19 era. This is a very, very simple integration to your staff. So I think, Gene, you might have the next one. Let's see. Oh, one more from me. It cleans and performs better than most employees. I mean, that's just the truth. I mean, it does. It's a great hedge against absenteeism and staff illness. You get people who call in sick, people who can't make it to work. They're afraid of the virus, and rightfully so. And some days just say, you know what, I'm not going to go to work today and clean. I just don't want to put my hands and face, and even with PPE on, I don't feel comfortable with that. There's no overtime or higher labor cost periods associated with this. This technology cleans at the same cost all the time. So if it's a Sunday, a holiday, a weekend, you can still maintain high levels of cleaning in those without paying extra. It really does address a lot of labor challenges. And as Gene and I like to say, it doesn't stay at a football game 2 hours too long on Sunday and call in sick on Monday. So, Gene, I think the next slide might be yours. There you go.
Well put, Dave. So thank you. The two questions Dave and I typically see when presenting this robot around the state are, one, how do I quantify exactly what I'm getting from this machine? And two, how can I conceptualize what this thing's going to look like once it's in my building? So what I've done is I've gone ahead and put together some case studies. I pulled an educational case study here today, and I'll give you guys a quick snapshot of what exactly a robot deployment looks like in education. This happens to be Churchville Chili High School. This is closer to me over in Rochester, just outside the city. And we deployed a robot there, I want to say at the start of the school year, so it would have been fall of 2019. Obviously, with the virus, some of the most recent data I had to go off of was actually back in February when they were using this. But what this does is this gives the customer or prospect a better idea of exactly how much a customer could be expected to use this, and really what the gains are. So looking at this screenshot in front of you, this comes directly from BrainCorp. That's our robotic AI partner. They supply all of the robotic components on our scrubber. And what they do is on a weekly basis, output an email to the end users so that they can see exactly what got scrubbed in their building, how the machine was charged, when it was used, and they can exactly, go over every fine detail as they so choose. So looking at this screen right here, you can see they're averaging about 9-10 hours a week during a typical school week. Some days they're under 2 hours. Some days they're pushing closer to 3 hours of robotic scrubbing. But what this does right here is it kind of quantitates exactly what you're getting in terms of labor that can be redeployed to other tasks, right? And with everything going on in this day and age surrounding COVID, I think now more than ever, there's kind of a spotlight and a need to kind of redeploy these assets, right? So we're looking at a school district, maybe that's cleaning buses, right? Or maybe that's disinfecting classrooms as we spread out the school days for the student body. Katie, I believe on the next page, I had a couple of pictures here. Okay, good. So this is a map of their high school. I believe it includes a portion of the middle school as well. And to answer the second question as for how can we conceptualize what this thing's going to look like, what I like to do is when we go into a building right before a demo or maybe a trial over the time of a couple nights, we grab a map and we really map out what the customer wants to get done robotically. And then we walk the floor and we come up with a series of routes that we know last about maybe 40-45 minutes, right? Which is about the length of a clean solution tank, right? Clean water or clean chemical tank on this machine. So what we find is that if you can come up with a handful of good 40-45 minute routes, it allows the operator, if you're looking at the screen in front of us here, let's pick out, let's say, the lime green section on our bottom right. That's their gymnasium. I believe that might be the cafeteria adjacent to it. But we know that's going to take about 45 minutes to scrub that gym, right? So the operator can send the machine out into the gym. They know it's going to take about 45 minutes. They can set a timer on their phone, maybe look at a clock. And while the scrubber is tackling the gym, they're somewhere else in the building disinfecting touch surfaces or whatever other standards may come about due to this virus that we're fighting. So we find this is incredibly helpful with prospects and customers who are evaluating whether or not the technology might make sense for them. We like to just give you a visual and show you how other customers have implemented this into their cleaning program. So clearly, we don't have a full school year's worth of data due to the shutdown in early March, but going off of the information that we have from September, we're up until about middle of March, we know that this school used the robot anywhere from 9, 10, 11, 12 hours per week, depending on the volume that was needed. We have data as to where exactly that scrubber went every night. So you'll be able to see from the feedback that you get from Brain, right, our artificial intelligence partner, where the scrubber is being used and what you got out of it. So Dave, I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but we find this is incredibly helpful presenting to customers and when we walk the floor with you to evaluate whether or not robotics makes sense for your building.
Right, and with the machine can hold 60 routes. So any place you see on there that we've got a different color as a route, the machine is memorized. So when you take it to the blue area, the orange area, you hit the button on the back, it will perform exactly like you want it to in that area. You can see by the previous sheet that they were starting to ramp up the usage on the machine right before the C-19 hit. There were more hours on it and there were fewer man hours, there were more robot hours. So if everything were equal, in a given week, they would probably use this around 20 hours a week. So basically what their crew gets is 20 hours back in labor to do other things that are way more important than scrubbing the gym floor in the hallway in the elementary school. So that ends up being the theme of the whole thing.
Yep, so really it's two parts that we point out. Katie, I believe we have a couple of videos here that we wanted to share just to give a clear picture to the folks on the call as well.
And I want, on this slide, I mean, this is just to introduce us, I guess, a Tennant company. If you don't know who we are, we're 150 years old. We're 100% U.S. supply chain. During the entire C-19 virus, we have shipped machines to Hill & Marks weekly for their customers. We have almost no delay at all in shipments. We've done a remarkable job prioritizing orders for healthcare and for elder care places that we know are under the gun. It's impossible to do that if you're not based in the United States. We hold more patents than any other company, and the rest of them combined, we have more patents. And we continually strive to bring disruptive but needed technology to customers. So this is very disruptive. There's no doubt about it. Robotics are disruptive. The ionized water technology I talked about earlier was disruptive because people like to sell chemicals. And again, Hill & Marks is always jumping on this stuff first and always bringing it to you. We have now cleaned over 1.5 billion with a B, square feet with our robotics system. We've had 3,000 of these at Walmarts. We've got them at airports, high schools, colleges, all over the place where people are cleaning big spaces. And now it's like a reverse demand where people are actually asking us to bring it in and show it to them because they need to free their labor up to do these other tasks that we've all talked about. There's a couple of great videos embedded here that Katie will probably push the button on here in a second. Oh, last one. You can do this one, Gene.
Yeah, so what this is more or less an overview of what's supplied to Tennant from Brain Corp. I believe Dave typically points out, and he may have already covered this, the scrubber itself is nothing new from Tennant. It's a nearly 20-year-old platform that's time tested. And Brain Corp is somebody that we partnered with, and some of it's probably the leading, most reputable company in that space. So this just kind of gives you an overview of what they're supplying us, what the components look. If you're looking at that scrubber on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see just below the steering wheel on the front panel, there's a big laser beam, right? So that's going to be the LiDAR that kind of guides the scrubber throughout your facility. Then if you look towards the bottom of that scrubber, there's a handful of sensors as well, which is sensing for traffic, objects that may be coming into its path. So where I'm going with this is it's a very safe technology. Dave pointed out that every Walmart and Kroger is deploying one of these in their stores, and they're oftentimes using it during store hours. So it's very safe to work around people. So that's something we definitely wanted to point out. Technology itself is also very to use. You'll see in the videos how intuitive it is for customers to pick it up and be able to use it at their leisure.
And we can get into the nuts and bolts as we maybe bring it to your facility and show it to you, get into more how it works and the technology that's there.
All right, so the first video that Tennant would like to show is the AMR robotic floor scrubber in action. And this is a Hill & Marks video, and we will share it now. Hopefully it is smooth sailing and you guys can watch this really clear. However, if there's any glitches, we will be sending these videos in an email following up to this webinar. So in case there's any technical glitches, you will be sure to be able to watch this. So here we go.
Who's that guy?
That's a short one from Hill and Marks. Now, did you guys have any glitches? Was there a kickback at all, or was it pretty smooth?
It was pretty good.
Okay. Let's go to this next one.
What they're showing you there is the guy can use it as a regular scrubber and then turn it into a robotic scrubber when he has to go do something else. All right, so those are the two videos. I know we had a lot of information in this presentation for you guys, and if you have any questions, now is the time for you to either write in the chat box or unmute yourselves. We'll have our experts answer. So feel free to ask some questions right now in the chat box or unmute yourself, and we will do our best to answer them. I want to say thanks so much to Jean, Dave, and Lance. You guys were fantastic, and we really appreciate you partnering with Hill and Marks to provide resources for our customers. So thank you so much for joining this call. Sure.
Any questions? Feel free to ask. It looks like we wowed them, guys.
That's it. That always happens. We're used to people being speechless after our presentations.
I did want to say for anyone who is on this call, you can reach out to Hill and Marks for information on the GP Holo system, as well as a demo from Dave, Jean, and our expert, Dan Sawyer. So he will also be able to help. Oh, we have a question. Does the Tennant program the maps for the customer, or do they do it? So do you guys do the maps for the customers, or do the customers do it?
You want to answer that, Gene?
Yeah, so I'll jump in here. So typically we can tackle everything within 2 nights. That's what a typical deployment looks like as far as retail, education, or an industrial setting go. The first night we would get the crew that's going to be using the robot comfortable, familiar with creating routes. Most of the routes we would have already discussed beforehand before the sale even occurred. But yeah, within those first 2 nights of installing the robot, I would say we would have probably 85–90% of the facility mapped out. And we would have tested those routes to verify and make sure everything's working fine. And then, of course, obviously, you have the whole support team between Dan Sawyer, who manages the equipment program at Hill and Marks, and Dave and myself here, both living in New York.
It's very easy, too. By the second night, the customer can already set up their own routes. They communicate with the machine. The second night is kind of redundant. We typically go in the first night, get them comfortable, and by the time you get there the second night, they've already set a couple routes up on their own, because it's just so easy and intuitive to do that people actually like doing it. And the machine will hold 60 different routes, and then you can erase them and start over if you like. So it'll fit in any number of applications.
I think we left him speechless, guys. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. We did record this. We will be sending it out in an email with follow-up with the videos that you just watched as well. And data-driven cleaning is the future so that we can all focus on high-touch areas and everything during COVID-19. So thank you guys so much for joining us, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks, Katie.
Thank you all.
So much,
Appreciate
Katie.
it.